It's been a fantastic day. We've heard young players, players up to 21, and the one common thing throughout has been a sense of enjoyment. You could feel it from where we were adjudicating, it resonating from the stage. I particularly enjoyed, I've got to say, this morning's session with the youngsters. It's fantastic to see people whose feet are dangling off the chair, and they're coming out with their pea bones or whatever it is they're playing, and they're playing pieces like The Young Artist, The Young Maestro. Those are pieces I remember playing when I was that age, and it's so important because that's the age where if you can capture their imagination and inspire through events like this, giving them the opportunity to perform solos to an enthusiastic audience, if you can inspire and capture them at that age, then the future will be bright, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Going through the day, then we had the ensembles, obviously, and we had the intermediate section, and we just finished up with the youth section, where there was some really virtuoso playing, which you'd expect, but what you don't always expect is mature phrasing. But we had that in abundance today, some lovely lyrical solos as well as the fireworks. So for me, a bit of an eye-opener. I enjoyed it and was thoroughly impressed.
How impressed were you with the way particularly the younger players handled themselves in front of an audience?
I've got two young boys myself now, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and there's nothing more entertaining than young children. Some of them would come out and you could tell that they were a little bit frightened, but that would sometimes come across, manifest itself in their playing. But there was others that came out and looked frightened. Then the moment they started playing, it was all gone. They were putting lots of air through it, and it was great. There was one player in particular who came out, and she was very young, but she was presenting herself as if she was Christian Lindbergh. It was absolutely wonderful to see. So very varied depending on the personality, but they all did themselves proud.
How important is choosing the right piece when it comes to an event like this?
Paramount importance, it really is. My father has always taught me, and he used to say, practice what you can't play, perform what you can. And there was a few people today that, and it happens with younger players, I'm sure I was the same when I was younger, that they just bit off a bit too much for themselves on the day. So my advice would be, you've got to challenge yourself, you've got to play pieces that you can't play in rehearsal and in preparation, because that's how you get better. But you always have to be realistic as well, and when you stood on a stage in a competition in front of an audience, you don't want to be feeling that you've picked a piece that's a little bit beyond you, and I think a few people felt that today. The ones that did particularly well were the ones that played music they could do really well. That's what audiences like to hear, that's what adjudicators like to hear. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't push themselves, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be adventurous with their choices, but perform what you can play and practice what you can't.
And finally, you're regularly travelling all over the world. How satisfying is it for you to come to Scotland and see a thriving solo and ensemble event taking place like this?
Well, I mean, you're expecting me to say it's really satisfying, and that would be the obvious thing. But I'm being really genuine when I say that I believe Scotland is leading the way when it comes to these kinds of competitions. When I was growing up, and the generation before me, solo competitions and quartet competitions, ensemble competitions, they were all over the place, and it provided a generation of players that took playing a slow melody seriously, that took phrasing within an air and vary seriously, and playing as a small group, the responsibility that takes, it certainly it develops playing. That doesn't happen very much now in England. Bands like Foden's are doing great things with their solo competition, which is to be congratulated. But certainly in Wales we don't have so many as we used to, and in other European countries I'm not sure whether the tradition has ever existed. But here in Scotland, with the events that you put on, in my opinion, you're leading the way, and we should all follow suit.